Today on the Digital Marketing Masters podcast, Nathan Fletcher, aka Uncle Nene, from Uncle Nene's Nerdcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Digital Marketing Masters. I'm your host, Matt Rouse, and today my guest is Nathan Fletcher. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show, Matt.
And Nathan and I met because I was on your podcast, Uncle Nene's Nerdcast.
That's right.
Talking about science fiction and AI, and we mentioned the book that's coming out. Actually, it just got funded on Kickstarter, The Tales of Galactic Pest Control from Amazing Stories.
I can't wait.
Out. And I've read some of it. It's amazing. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I got like a pre-edit copy.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I've been going through all the other. I found a bunch of the other people who wrote the stories on Blue Sky.
Okay.
And so I kind of connected with them on there, and we've been chatting a little bit back and forth. And then I read their stories. Man, I read this one that was in there. I don't want to give away what happens, but essentially there's a disease that starts to take over a spaceship, and it turns out that someone caught a venereal disease when they were off ship on shore leave, and it mutated on their ship.
Oh, wow.
And so it turns into a pest that they have to try to control. And yeah, it was a super interesting story. Mine's not as risque. I also have the last story in the book, so mine is the last one.
Oh, nice.
Before the book finishes out. So make sure you read to the end, folks. Otherwise, you don't get to hear Agenda Item B, Pest Control. But Nathan, we have a very specific topic today that I'm sure we can kind of take several directions, and we'll see how it goes.
All
but
right.
This is an idea that you and I have both run into, and that is that once you do all your creative work, like you're writing a story, you're recording a podcast, you're doing whatever that thing is that you make, you actually find out, generally most people find this out the first time, is you write a book or you make a story or you get a screenplay or whatever, and then you find out you have to market it yourself or no one will ever see it. Because the kind of gatekeeper system that used to exist is no longer there.
That's
and
right.
So I guess my first question would be, why don't you give us a quick kind of one breath about who you are, and then we'll get back into talking about it.
Sure. So my career, most of my life, it has been in marketing and production. So I started when I graduated high school early at age 16. I got a job working for a marketing production company down in South Texas that did commercials, TV shows, a little bit of everything. And so I learned production and how to make commercials, make music videos, all of that. So I grew up in the production business. And the last 10 to 15 years has been more into cable and in, of course, the transition over to streaming. So I've worked for cable networks and streaming platforms, and it's been focused mainly in that space, both in the operations as well as the content development. So that's, in a nutshell, my background. And then personally, I've, this last recent year decided I'm going to start a podcast because my daughter's moved out of the house and I have a lot of spare time, and I love and have always loved fantasy and sci-fi. And so I wanted a hobby, and so a podcast seemed like a good idea. So I started Uncle Nene's Nerdcast because my nieces and nephews call me Uncle Nene, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been meeting great people like you, and just talking about something I love to talk about, which is science fiction and fantasy. So what could be better than that?
Yeah, it's a great community around, especially kind of authors in general. I found to be, pretty inclusive. Everybody's friendly. There's the odd duck here and there, that you run into that maybe aren't as friendly, but 99 out of 100 super great people. I don't know how many people now who are authors. I hit them up and I'm like, hey, I saw you're an author and you write this kind of book. I write this kind of book. We should chat. And they're like, yeah, let's chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that extends to most creative people that, whether or not they consider themselves an artist, are probably an artist.
Right.
And then they have that, they want to connect because that's part of, I think, an artist is, that kind of drive to connect.
Yeah, I think also the that, as the topic here is about kind of marketing that creative work or finding out you have to market that creative work. I think a lot of that comes out in people going, "Oh my god, I've been an introvert and I've been writing stories or poetry or music or whatever it is in a dark room by myself for 3 years, and now I actually have to go talk to people." And
Yeah.
so they kind of get over that talk to people stage fright pretty
Yeah.
early.
Because they have to.
Right. Yeah, or else nobody's ever going to see what you did, right? I don't know
Right.
how many authors I have seen who think that the process of writing a book is I write a book, I put it on Amazon, some, you know, some agent is going to read my book randomly, or they're going to get told about it by someone else who read it, and they're going to sign me up for a 10-year deal for $1 million to write 3 books and make a movie, and like just fantasy of how the whole system works, right?
Yeah. I have a good friend. He's a writer, doesn't get paid to write, but he's a writer, right? He has a job but he writes personally, and he just his last novel, and so now he's at the phase where he's sending out all of these letters to requesting representation,
Right.
and where he's written I guess a treatment or whatever, or a summary of the book, and it's a couple places have asked for a manuscript, and so right now he's get the phase where he's just getting rejection after rejection after
Right.
rejection after rejection, and it's it's heartbreaking. There's what can you do? This is his
Right.
baby that he worked on for years, and it's just nope, not what we're looking for. This is this blah 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 blah, and so that's part of the process. Is you just got to get used to hearing no, because you got to hear the no's before you hear the yes.
That's right. You know what? The first thing that I put into a writing contest, I got shortlisted. And so now, and then the second thing I wrote got into the book. And so now I'm like, I get a rejection and I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, you guys suck. The other
Well,
people loved my story.
Well,
But no, I know, I understand that it's
success
not for
early
everyone.
on can almost be a detriment sometimes.
That's right.
When I was starting off in my career, I started out very young, and so by the time I was, in my early 20s, like 20, 21, I had some success as a producer, director, editor, and there was a very big Spanish band called the Cumbia Kings, which the founder was A.B. Quintanilla, who was Selena Quintanilla's brother. And AB had me edit one of his music videos, and once I edited it, he was like, "I don't want anyone else to edit my music videos for,"
Nice.
and he wouldn't let anyone edit his music except me. He's like, "He gets it. He's a visionary. He's a good editor." And I was a kid at the time, and so it was great, but at the same time, I took it for granted that, that's how I was. That
Right.
talent was something that was special and all of that. And so it kind of, when things come real easy early on, then it doesn't prepare you for later on in life when you're going to stumble and fall.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, I mean, even if the stars align and something good happens out of the gate, I say, yeah, my short movie screenplay got shortlisted in the first contest that I put it into, but I also wrote like 1,000 blog posts, 8 business books. That's all of that
Right.
for decades of writing before I ever thought, yeah, maybe I could do a short screenplay. You know,
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
like I started out and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to write a screenplay about a robot that goes to jail, and which technically is what my screenplay was about. But yeah, like you don't, anytime that somebody has immediate success, it people see it as like, the old Hollywood trope, like, you know, Janice was singing karaoke down on at the bar, and some movie producer saw her and said, "You should be in my musical." You know, like that's just not the way it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Myself, I really enjoyed the experience when I first had a corporate media job as a senior vice president of content development. And as is very common, a couple years ago, I got laid off because in media and entertainment, everybody's getting laid off. That's how it is. But it freed me up to follow this science fiction fantasy uh, passion that I've always had. So I started to engage in world building and started to build this universe that I liked. And so I did. I built this planet and all these kind of the lore of the history of the different nations and tribes and their history and what are the rules for magic and all of this stuff. And I started to work on it, really enjoyed it. Wrote a short story based in that world. It was awful. I am not equipped to write short stories. It was really awful. I self-published and then I deleted it and pulled it off because it was just so bad. Um, and then I wrote a screenplay, and I was like, okay, this is much better. I can. It's better. It's still not
Right.
good, right? It's still not good, but it's not. So I'm on my third screenplay, and each one is getting better, right?
Right.
And I have enough objectivity to look at what I've written and say, oh, this is bad, or this is, it's getting better. But it's, the more you do it, the better you get,
Right.
and that's just something that you have to learn.
Yeah, I mean, iteration is how everything gets better, right? And it's
Yeah,
how everything gets done. Anything in the world that you see that got done that was good, somebody iterated on that forever. You know,
yeah,
it is so rare that there is an actual edge case where somebody came out of the blue and did something and it worked.
right, right.
It's
Yeah,
almost never.
I was sitting on a panel at the film school in TCU, which is a big college here in Fort Worth. And I could tell from the questions that the kids were asking that they assumed that when they graduated, they were going to be producing and directing.
Right.
And I said, listen, I think it's great you're getting an education and learning how to do this. I think that's great. But you have to understand that when you leave here, you'll be qualified to be a production assistant. That's it. Entry
Right.
level, right? You're going to have to get some experience, figure out which department you want to go into, and then work your way up, build relationships, and learn. And that's just now there is the one in a million shot. Every now and then there is the fresh college grad that just meets the right people, gets to make a big Hollywood movie. But that's a one in a million shot.
Right.
Most people have to put in their time, work at it, work their way up, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I've been reading Seth Godin's book, This is Strategy, which is a business strategy book.
Okay.
But honestly, any kind of organization or business that you're in, I think it's an excellent read. But one of the things that he said that I found striking, and it's right near the beginning, is that all the low hanging fruit has already been picked. And
Mm,
basically, what he's saying is, if anything that you're gonna do, if it's easy, somebody else has already done it, probably done it better.
that's a
So if
good
you're
point.
not doing something difficult or something hard to do, you're not really gonna get anywhere,
That's
right?
great. I like that.
And
All low hanging fruit has already been picked. That's
yeah,
great.
well,
Yeah.
and you got to think about it. Like, I mean, just in the United States alone, was there 400 million people?
Yep.
Like,
Almost, I think. Yeah.
so if you say it's a 1 in a million chance that somebody's gonna make a better movie than the one that you made, that's still 40 people.
Yeah.
Like if you were talking about statistics, I'm not a math expert, but
Yeah.
um, but I think something really interesting that I found in the creative space, because I work a lot with code and a lot with, I don't know, non-creative side of technical marketing, right?
Mhm.
Getting things connected to other systems and, you know, putting in API keys and codes and
Right.
workflows and all this crap, logic-based stuff. But on the creative side of work, I find that creatives are very good at getting their point across, getting their message across, and all of that kind of stuff. And what they're bad at is figuring out how to get distribution.
Yeah.
Like they could craft the message, but they can't get the message to the people,
Yeah.
right? Especially at scale, right? And when I say at scale, I mean more than, the 100 people that in the world posting it on TikTok or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you have to reach tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people to have basically any difference in,
Yeah.
making money.
Yep.
So, and there's also, there is the idea of like the 1,000 followers who are like your 1,000 perfect customers is enough for you to make $100,000 a year.
Right.
And that's been true for a while, but in my experience, you need to reach 100,000 people to find those 1,000.
Right.
Right. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, all of Nova Scotia where I live only has 800,000 people.
Right.
Right. So, you know, depending upon where you live, that's a difficult proposition. So if somebody is, you know, doing creative work and they're kind of getting to that point where they're like, I have to market this work. Do you have any advice, kind of general advice for people in that predicament, I guess I would call it?
Yeah, there are some great tools out there for one. You know, I think ChatGPT is really good at helping in that for ideas,
Mhm.
brainstorming. I use it to, especially the deep research function, to do research on, hey, I've created this piece of work. What are some things I can do to get the word out that don't cost money, or I have a small budget or whatever? I think it's a great tool for that. I found it to be useful. But I think there are communities, depending on what you create, but there are communities like on Reddit and other places where you can reach a lot of people by just participating in that community and starting to talk to people and build relationships. And I think that's phenomenal. I also think that you're just going to have to get used to hearing no. And I think entering, at least for screenplays, I don't know if it's true for books, but I know for screenplays, entering contests is not very expensive, but it can be a great way to get some notoriety and attention to your work.
And reader feedback.
Yeah. I like the feedback. I like the professional feedback on my screenplays, because if I hear a couple of different people say the same thing, then there's definitely validity to it. And a lot of time I already suspected that anyways, that like, yeah, the third act is way too long. There's way too much stuff there. I got to trim that
Right.
out, stuff like that, that is, the stakes aren't high enough in this part, things like that, that I already kind of suspected. And then now I've got to revisit it for sure. So that can be really useful.
Yeah, I found that reader feedback for books, you know, like there's more than one kind of feedback, right? And what we're talking about is professional editor feedback, right? Like
Right.
somebody who is reading and selecting screenplays that actually get made, or they have produced screenplays that have been made into films or
Yes.
TV shows, right? In the case of books, you know, it's somebody who's either a professional editor, they're a published writer who is not just self-published, but also has sold lots of books, or they're professionally published or been paid to publish.
Yeah.
But the other kind of feedback is like peer feedback, which I think is still good, right? If you know somebody else who writes
Mm-hmm.
the same type of thing as you write, you know, or another business person, if you write a business book kind of thing, you know, if you write a self-help book, find some self-help people. That's great. The feedback that I think is terrible is unrelated people who have no experience in the thing that you do, right?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
found this a lot with business books. I would give it to someone who is not a business person, like they don't own or run their own or manage their own business. They don't have any experience with it. I would give them the book and they'd be like, I didn't like this part. I don't like that part. You know, they're trying to find criticism because they think that's what editing is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, if you ask people who have no experience or education in the thing that you're doing, the feedback is worthless, right?
Yeah.
And discouraging usually.
Yep. And it's almost like, it reminds me of a sales training thing I did one time, where they talked about trying to sell to someone who is not a sales prospect.
Right.
Right? It's like that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to sell to someone who would never buy your product. They'd never, they're not interested. They don't fit, but you're going to keep trying to sell to them, and that's kind of what you're like. You're asking
Yeah.
someone's opinion on your creative work who would never read your book. They're not interested.
Right.
It's like my mom doesn't like science fiction and fantasy. She's never going to be into that. I wouldn't get her opinion on my book, even though I'm her son. She'd probably tell me she loved it, but it's
Right.
still, she's not in the audience that I'm going for.
Yeah. Along those same lines too is like if you're doing music or something or theater or, you know, TV shows and that kind of thing, everybody has heard a song, so everybody has an opinion on your song. But it's really, really easy to find bands that have millions of people who like that song that you hate.
Right. Yep.
And I just go into YouTube and type in the opposite type of music that you listen to, like
Yeah.
think of whatever if you're like a hard rock metal guy and you don't like country, go type in pop country or something, or new country 2025, and listen to it and
Yeah.
look at it. It'll be like, this has 25 million views and you can't even make it through a minute,
Right.
So I think another thing, which we didn't talk about, which I think is a really good idea, and I think you would agree with me on this, is podcasting is an excellent way to spread the word about things you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've found it, not only is it's good for that, but it's also just, I think, good for your own perspective as a creator, as a creative person. It's great to talk to other creative people and get their perspective. And so I think it's great for that, and can be very easily, um, very affordably, you can grow an audience as well.
Yeah, and in a, I don't know if I would call it completely uncensored, but an essentially uncensored format, right?
Yeah.
Like your podcast can't be about like, I can't even say what it would be because I don't want to get my podcast taken off Apple or something. But as long as you're not really way out there
Yeah.
on some kind of borderline legal tactic or speech, you could get the word out, and you have an RSS feed, so you could put it on podcast platforms all over the world at no cost whatsoever,
Yeah.
with the exception of maybe the podcast hosting.
Yeah.
Which you spend a few bucks on, but at that price is coming down too. I think I spend under 20 US a month on unlimited shows and unlimited downloads on Podhome.
Yeah,
I think it's 14.
I use rss.com, and I think it's, yeah, like
Mhm.
14, 15 bucks a
Yeah,
month,
it's cheap.
something like that. And I upload it once, and then it distributes automatically to Spotify and everywhere else. So
Yeah.
it's super easy.
Another thing that's really interesting to do with podcasts is you can, create clips and stuff from it for your social media and stuff. I know,
Mhm.
like you were saying, like Riverside does it automatically. I use an app called Get Munch to do it.
Oh,
But you can also put, like this video that we're on right now can be put on YouTube or something like that.
yeah.
But another thing also is I think people struggle with, what am I going to post today or this week, right? Like they have some kind of posting schedule that they've made for themselves. And they're like, I have to post something new every
Yeah.
single time. And if you're doing a podcast on a regular schedule, you've already got something to post about, right? Because you're going to
Yeah.
put your episode on. But another thing that you could do is talk about something that you talked about in your show, right?
Yeah.
Expand on that. Or mention how, I was talking to Nathan about screenplays on my podcast and I had this idea, yada, 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 right? It's a great way to come up with more content.
That's a good idea.
Well, we do own a marketing agency, so we do this all the time.
Yeah, what I do with my podcast is I use Opus Pro
Mhm.
clips. I find it better at selecting clips than Riverside. Riverside's great for recording the podcast and making the master, but then I take that master file and I upload it to Opus, and then it selects clips, and then I schedule all the social media for the whole week. And so I once I get, it's part of my, we talk about AI agentic. This is one of the
Right.
things an AI agent needs to do for me is, once the thing is done, I have the same routine, right? Record
Right.
the podcast, upload it to YouTube, upload the audio to RSS, upload it to Opus Pro, get my social media clips, schedule them out for the week after the premiere, and then I'm done. And it's the same thing every time I do a podcast. But yeah, see, I use it. I push out 3 clips a day on TikToks, and then
Mhm.
about 3 clips a week or 4 clips a week on Instagram, and then I also do 3 clips a day on YouTube Shorts, and
Nice.
that's it. I don't do Facebook or X or anything else. But those are my platforms for my podcast, and it seems to be going well. It seems to be growing pretty well.
Yeah, I think if you use like Zapier or N8N or something like that, you could some kind of automation system.
Yeah.
Then you could connect all those things. There's an API for Opus, so you could connect to get those clips out. We had talked about earlier about, if you're using the deep research function of the AI, that could just be another step in your workflow.
Yep.
So technically, I mean, all an AI agent really is like a workflow that's looped, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
trying to do stuff over and over. And really what you need is you just need a workflow that's on a schedule that's going to run through, do this task on the schedule that you've set. And it can even be something that you manually kick it off each time you want to use it. But that is an excellent way, not only for, stuff like shows and things. You could do that for almost every business in the world. Would be more efficient if they just used an automation tool.
Yes.
Right?
And those have been
I've
around.
never seen a business who haven't.
We've done, with Adobe, what has had macros for a long time, where you would record the okay, I'm going to take this file, I'm going to do record the macro, okay, repeat, and then it would automate, and so it's those type of automations, can save so much time.
There was macros in Windows 3.1. If you remember how far back that is, right? Like this is how far back some of these tools are.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is a game changer, especially for creatives, when you're going to be doing a repeated job, like I'm going to be sending out my manuscript to different people, is have a format, right? This is my template for what I'm going to send to someone.
Yeah.
And then do some quick research on that person and take the format and take the research you've done and ask ChatGPT to combine those things and then give it a read through to do your own edits.
Yes.
And send that out, because you're not getting it to write your email or your message for you. You're saying, here's the email I wrote. Right. Here's the research I did.
Yeah.
Put these two together.
Yes. Yep.
And that's an excellent way to keep your creative flair and all the things that are good about being a person by using the AI to slug through the part that you don't want to do. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think is really important as a creative person. When I'm putting on my creative hat and I'm in that side of the world, I don't use AI to actually create. I use it to research, to give me ideas so that I can create. It's like I was thinking about something involving an EMP weapon, and so I was trying to ask ChatGPT, how do you create an EMP? And it's like, sorry, I can't tell you that. I was like, okay, I'm doing it for a screenplay. If I just leave out a couple of minor critical steps, but give me, and then it went ahead and did it, right? So it's not the complete way to build an EMP, but it gave me enough to where I had this, okay, so this is how someone could do it. And then it allowed me to kind of get that part of the story going. So I think that there is ways to you as a creative person to still rely on that as like being a research assistant.
Yeah. And depending on your own writing style, you can see how accurate it needs to be, right? Like a good example would be the science fiction of, say, Interstellar, where it has some of the fictional stuff mixed with physics, like time dilation and things like that in the movie, versus something like Star Wars, where they're just like spaceships just fly.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's just what happens.
That's what happens. Yeah.
And like you don't always have to have the hardcore physics example, but you can do stuff like I was working on a story about first contact from a nearby alien race. And what I wanted to know is, what is the earliest message that was sent from the Earth spherically out from the planet?
Right.
And what are the nearest star systems that we know that have a planet in the habitable zone?
Right.
And then how long would it take to get there and how long would it take to get back?
Right.
Right. And I actually got it down. And hypothetically, there was a burst sent that was a military radar that went out from the Earth that had a strong enough signal strength to reach several planets in the habitable zone that we've already detected.
Okay.
And the time for that message to come back to us from the earliest one would be somewhere around 2028.
All right.
So
We're ready.
hypothetically, using science in a few years, there
Yeah.
could be one. How accurate that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's way more accurate than if I tried to figure it out myself. I'll tell you
Right.
that. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
if I'm off by a few years or something, this is
Yeah.
not the end of the world. It's just a story.
Yeah. And I will share this too for those who are looking for email addresses as they're trying to reach an executive or somebody higher up. I'll share this little secret. I use ChatGPT to identify people and titles that I might want to reach out to, right? That I
Right.
think may be prospects for my services. And then there is a website, D&B,
Mhm.
Dun& Bradstreet, right?
Yep.
They have a program called D&B Hoovers. And if you sign up for that, it's not cheap, but it's like $50 a month, not too expensive.
Right.
You can find so many people's email addresses, their professional email addresses that they don't have on their website. They're not public, but they are in D&B Hoovers because that's where they get their D&B number. And so I shared that as a piece of advice because I have found that useful as a way to reach people that I can't get a hold of them. No one reads their LinkedIn direct messages. No one does.
Right.
Most people don't. And so if you're looking for an email address, I offer that up as a good tip.
Nice. Another thing that you can also use is something like Data Shopper uh, is one example. There's also another one that's now what was the name of it? I'll have to find it. Oh, anyways, you guys can always message me, get my email, or you can actually, I do read my messages on LinkedIn because lots of people send me messages on LinkedIn for some reason. You know what's funny is actually in the marketing world, I found that marketing people totally read their DMs from LinkedIn. Like
Oh,
you go to a conference, everybody sticks their phone out with their little LinkedIn QR code and
okay.
scans each other,
Yeah.
right? And that's how they all get connected.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, I don't know if that holds for any other industry. Probably not. But yeah, so finding, the contact people that you need to get for, for work is one thing. But if it's like I'm trying to do a submission, like a creative submission or something like that,
Yeah.
I think you got to pretty much go the permission route.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
send it to the email address that they say this is for submissions.
Yeah.
And go through the proper channels. But one trick that you can do there that is kind of similar to what you're talking about would be like if I know the agent or somebody who's the decision maker for this creative process, I'll look them up on LinkedIn and then look who they're connected to and then see if anybody you're connected to is connected to those people.
That's good.
And then you can ask for an intro. You can say,
Yeah.
oh, hey, Bob knows, Janet that I'm trying to get a hold of.
Right.
Do you think you could ask Bob if I could get an intro? That kind of thing.
That's
So
good.
sometimes you can get like a second-hand referral.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. Let me ask you, what are your thoughts on changing medium? If you have a story to tell and screenplay isn't happening, no one is interested, switching to say a graphic novel or an animated movie or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny you say that because I have an interesting theory on this that I haven't really shared with anyone. But what I'm doing with my novel that I'm writing right now, my plan is to try and essentially sell the whole thing as it is a novel and a screenplay and a graphic novel and short video and like every format that I could find and audio book, all at once.
Interesting.
And the reason is because I think once you have it in one format,
Yeah.
you can use systems like AI systems and stuff to convert it to other formats.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to hire somebody to do the graphic novel,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I toyed with
possible. But
Yeah, I toyed with. I wrote a story that would make a good. I felt like a good graphic novel. It was a screenplay that I converted to. Okay, I'm going to try and convert this to a graphic novel, and I hired a overseas artist on Fiverr.com
mhm,
to do one page to see the quality of their work, and they did great work, and it was very inexpensive. And I thought, well, for not so much, I could make a one issue graphic novel, but I didn't finish it. But there's that option that I have entertained.
right. And I think that it's really going to depend on kind of a combination of things. One of them is like if you're like the diehard creative and you're like, if I'm gonna put this into an audiobook, I'm reading the book. And if it's gonna be a graphic novel, I'm guiding the artist through this kind of process. That's one thing, right?
Mm, yeah,
Another thing is like maybe writing this is not my full-time job and I have another business and I make good money. I can hire people to do all these things,
right,
right? That's
right,
another
yeah,
option,
yeah,
right? And a third option is by the time I get my book finished, which is probably going to be by the end of the year, most of the AI tools are good enough that I can generate all these things.
mm,
Yeah, it's going to
yeah,
take some push and pull, and you got to have some know how,
yeah,
but I should be able to convert my book into a screenplay and edit the screenplay. I should
okay,
be able to convert my book into a graphic novel and have consistent characters using Midjourney or something like
right,
that, you know,
right,
and then have somebody do the formatting, right?
yeah,
And so there's ways to speed up the process. And
yeah,
I think you're going to see that crossover of IP.
yeah,
Like what happens in the world now is something is put out, gets popular, and then they make every possible kind of IP from that single
yeah,
intellectual property, right?
yeah,
They're going to make the video game and the book and the audio and the novels and the
yeah,
spin-offs and the whatever, right? Now you can do it all at once,
right.
right?
Well, I once produced a 1 hour special as a pilot episode for a true crime recreation show, right? Where we interviewed the actual detectives and people that were
Right.
involved in the case, and then we shot recreations for all of the things that happened. And it was a really interesting case. It was about a rodeo clown that went nuts and killed some woman. So
Wow.
scary rodeo clown is great, right, visually. um, and so that was a lot of fun. But what AI has made me think of is, okay, if I were to produce that show today, I would shoot the interviews with the people, and then I probably could use AI for all the recreation shots.
Right.
Where it's almost there, right? And then I still have a program that I can copyright and trademark and own the IP. It's but I've reduced the cost of that episode down enormously.
Right.
And and so I think that we're approaching that level where, yeah, you're right. AI is getting there to where certain content you just don't need to shoot anymore. You don't need to hire actors to do recreations, and stock footage is going to be pretty much pointless. There's so much that is going to change there.
Yeah, I think once there's more of a like a worldview in the system, right, where it has a kind of an idea of how, well, I should say more of a world model where it can say, okay, this is what happens when liquid falls onto a surface, or you
Right.
know, I want to place the like in your case, maybe it's a body in a room.
Yep.
I can say, okay, I want the body to be laying in this position in this part of this type of room, and it can figure that out you know
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
sort of there now, but it's not quite you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
we're
Well,
probably two
it's not.
generations away, which is
Yeah.
a year
It's
and a half.
it's not in a place yet where you can kind of create three-dimensional space and it can adhere to, this is the scene, this is the, and
Right.
then I can say, okay, I want these things to happen to these characters in this scene. Ideally you would want to be able to scan all the crime scene photos and then say create this in a scene in a 3D space, and it just automatically does that. And then,
Yeah.
okay, give me a zoom out from the body, give me a dolly left to right with those types of things, and it'll get there. But yeah, it's
Right.
not there yet.
You can sort of get there now if Like a good example would be if you take a crime scene sketch of a room or something, you put that into Midjourney and you describe what the room looks like and use that as the reference photo.
Yeah.
It's going to make a room that looks, relatively like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then, you could use something like, like Cling or Connect or something where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to put a body in this room and you could describe where, and it
Yeah.
figures out how to put that in.
Yep.
And then now you have a reference photo to put into VO3.
Yep.
And then it could, but this is a process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's going through these hoops yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
The consistency, I think, especially like with animals has been it's been a struggle, but it'll get there. I did upload a bunch of pictures of my dog and who passed away, and it was able to fairly accurately give me some video files of looks just like him. So
wow.
it's really growing well, and we've gone off the rails on this topic, but
Well, you know what? This is what people want to know, though. These are the
Yeah.
types of questions and conversations that I have when I'm out speaking about AI stuff, right?
yeah,
And somebody's like some crazy use case that somebody comes up with, and I'm like, well, if you use this and this and this and this, you could probably do that. Like you could string the pieces
Yeah.
together.
yeah,
And we're at that stage. I remember when writing software was like that.
yeah,
You'd have to use multiple software languages to get something done, and different formats of storage, and all kinds of crap that you had to go through, and
yeah,
just to write the most basic pieces of software. Nowadays, you're just like, you're like Anthropic.
oh, it's amazing.
You go to Sonnet 4 and you're like, write me this plugin for WordPress, and it's like, here you go.
Oh, I wanted, you made me think of this. So talk about using AI as inspiration. So I came up with this idea for a screenplay where a reflective sphere appears next to the moon, and it and so I asked AI to come up with an image. So so if you can see that,
Right.
right? Like and then it's got this sphere right next to it, right next to the moon.
Right.
And for me, it was really helpful to see that, right? It
Right.
was
So for
inspiring.
those listening, Nathan's got his phone, and there's like the moon, and then there's a reflective sphere with a reflection on one edge of it. Kind of, you can see the reflection of the sun on the other part.
Yeah, and so for me, getting that image made helped me like start to, okay, what would it be like to grow up? Because the idea is that it appears and it's just there, and
Right.
and the story doesn't start place until it's already been there for 10 years, 15 years. It's already something like it's already been there, and you can't approach it. It's got an electromagnetic field that repels everything, so you can't really send probes to it or anything like that.
Right.
It's just there. And so the idea was, well, what would it be like growing up as a child with the moon has a second moon, right? There's this sphere that's just
Right.
reflective. You get used to it. No one cares. It's not strange. It's not weird. It's just this thing that's there. And then the movie starts after it's already been there for a while.
That's cool.
And so, but for me as when I was in that place, I was like, what would it look like? So I had that image come up, and I was like, okay, yeah, I could, now I'm starting to get a sense for what it's like when you're a kid. You look up and you see that, and it's this thing that's there. So I think, again, using those tools as a creator can really help.
I like using Midjourney for characters, where
Yeah.
I'll go, all right, I have a character I'm thinking of. She looks like this. She's got this kind of hair and this kind of skin, and she wears this kind of clothes, and whatever. And it makes an image, and I'm like, that's not quite what I was thinking.
Right.
Like, I think her hair needs to be longer. She's probably 10 years older,
Yeah.
whatever. And then it makes the change again. And then I go through, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? Now I'm getting to something that I think looks like the character that I had in mind.
Yeah.
And then I'm also like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about it, but I should describe, that she has freckles on her cheeks, or that she has like this part of her clothing is this way that I hadn't even thought
Right.
about, or something. Right. And
Yeah.
so you can kind of get a visual that can help you come up with ideas to describe other parts of characters. And honestly, you know what? I get a million times already, and I'm exaggerating a bit, but people tell me all about how the AI is terrible, and everything sucks about AI and it's a slot machine and it's just gonna like kill everyone's brain and the school system's gonna fall apart and somehow it also sucks, but also is gonna take over the world. And even though it just uses data centers like every other thing you do on a computer, somehow it's now using up all the water in the world. And just like all these things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is so much momentum now behind it, so much money, so many people, so many companies that 100% it is going to keep going at the rate it's going, at least for the foreseeable future. And in my opinion, you only have a couple choices. You either go, I am going to partner with this AI as a generality, right? I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to work with it and see what I can do, to have it help me, right? Or I can put my head in the sand and, I'm probably fine for the next 5 years or so. But outside of that, it's going to be real tough to make a living or do anything if you don't know how to use any kind of AI.
Well, just remember, Blockbuster Video could have bought Netflix, and they declined.
That's right.
So that's the choice that I think we're all given.
Right. It's like Kodak basically invented the digital camera and then went out of business because they were addicted to the money that they made on film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a million, there's a million examples in the business world of how these things happen.
Yeah.
But I really think that people are also missing out on really advancing like how quickly they can bring their creative work to market, or at least to the point that they want it to get to.
Yeah.
Once you get those productivity gains, it's really hard to go back.
Well, right? and I'll tell you something about in the media space and in my professional side that I work in. The media operations for every company is going to change dramatically because what's going to happen is, and they're already getting access to this, is the big boys, the Google and the OpenAI, they're going to get access to storage, media storage of these big companies.
Right.
And so, one of the biggest expenses you have as a media company is media asset management, where you have all of your assets that have all of this metadata so that you can sort every master and know where it goes. And then you have different versions that need to go to different places and different codecs and different, all of that, right? But now you can just point AI to your storage and say, tell me what's in there. And it can scan all the video and audio files. It doesn't need metadata. And it can tell you, here's what you got in here. You've got these shows, these masters, blah, 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 all this stuff, because it just can read and process all of that. And so there is going to be this huge shift of power that was software companies and SaaS services and all of that, that's going to just shift over to AI. And so if you're not prepared for that and wanting to be one of those people that is leveraging AI's power in that space, it's going to be a big wake-up call.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. A lot of that stuff's going to be done on the fly.
Yeah.
Right? You're not even going to make all the different formats anymore. You're just going to make one master format and the system will just convert it on the fly for whatever's needed at the time.
Yep, that's the way it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and man, I mean, I
That's
think
like there's a spec in the media space called the Cable Labs spec, which it has so many fields of metadata, ridiculous amount of information that and people are still having a human being fill out this
type it all in
or Excel sheet for every single field because they never created it when they made the original master, and so now they've got to send it someplace. And they use the cable lab, right? And so all of that stuff is going to go away. That's going to be just give me access to the file. I'll figure out what I need to, and so it's remarkable, and a lot of people just aren't paying attention to that development.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard of that, and I don't work in that kind of media though, of course. Yeah. But we do that with software, right? Like somebody sends me data in any format. It doesn't matter what it is for our company. and I'm just like, convert this into what I need, and I drop
Right.
it in, right?
Right.
Obviously not with anything that's private or finance, right? But
Yeah.
we have our own private cloud for that stuff that we use anyway. So we have
Right.
private AI.
Yeah. So it's what's funny is I won't say what it is, but they're one of the big media corporations, and they have this media ingest platform for producers. And so you go to their platform and you upload a master and you fill out all this stuff, and then it will reject it. Nope, didn't pass. You got to fix these things, right? And then you got to resubmit, upload it all over again, and then nope, this didn't pass. It's
right.
insane. It's
Arduous,
insane, Matt. It's taking, and then after like the third or fourth time, you got to reach out to their technical staff and say, "Hey, I'm got it right. We have the right specs. You're not collecting."
Right.
It's a nightmare, right? None of that is necessary, right?
No.
Like none of it is necessary. You should just be able to send them the file, or actually just point them to your cloud storage and
Right.
say, "Here's the file," right? And then they can get it and convert it to whatever they need, and it should be all automated. And so you have entire ecosystems that are about to get destroyed, and it's really incredible
And good,
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry if somebody loses their job who used to type shit in for a living, but like, is data entry really what you wanted to do anyway? Like, couldn't you go work on that screenplay instead?
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
And we don't need these arduous, pointless tasks that should never have been tasks ever, right?
Right.
A lot of times it's almost like punishing your customers, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea of like, I go to like I gotta go to the doctor, so they ask me to fill out a form of why I gotta see the doctor, and I get there and they ask me to fill out a medical form when I'm there, and they send me to a specialist where I fill out the medical form again. Like, just take it out of the database, dude. I've already filled this out 5 jillion times.
God,
shouldn't you know what I'm allergic to, right? I mean, I told you 12 other times, right? This kind of stuff is just eventually it's all gonna get fixed. But that's also
like
one of
when you
the
apply
problems,
for a
right?
job and it's like upload the resume and then like now enter each of your experiences. It's
Right.
on the resume.
Yeah. Man, I can't even remember how often I had to do that kind of thing when I was an IT contractor and you're applying for contracts repeatedly, right? Because you have 2-3 jobs a year. And I was like, you were talking about macros. I made a macro that would just had all the stuff in it, right? And I'd just be like, enter this experience, and I'm like, F4, enter this job, F5. They would just paste it all in. Nathan, it's been a great time talking. We've already been on for like almost an hour, so we should probably wrap this up. Somebody's already been to work and back twice listening to this one episode. Thanks everybody for listening. Nathan, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
Go to my website, texasndf.com is my Nathan David Fletcher is my professional website, texasndf.com, and then you have my podcast website, unclenene.com, which that is Nayny, unclenene.com.
Yep, and on your podcast app, it's Uncle Nene's Nerdcast.
That's correct.
All right, Nathan, it's been great, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Masters podcast with your host, Matt Rouse. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us an honest review on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to check out Matt's book, Will AI Take My Job? And have a wonderful day.